Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Kev and today I want to talk about walking. So I started this channel around 60 days ago, 61 days. I started on day 0 and the goal is to go for a walk every day and invite you to come along with me. So I was filming walks every day, but then I quickly realized that the overhead of doing a daily video and actually having interesting things to say was pretty significant. So I changed format a little bit and I still go on the daily walks. I've covered 200 kilometers so far. If you want to follow along with that, you can go to Instagram. There's a picture every day, plus the distance and a few other bits, whatever I feel like talking about that day, I will post on Instagram. But today I figured it's day 60, we're 200 kilometers in, so I thought a recap would be in order. So I want to talk about some of the benefits of walking, and later on I will drop a hot take that I have about walking and why it is critical for our freedom as human beings. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's get walking. Today I went for a walk up to the Bornabrina Reservoir, which is a spot in Dublin which stores a whole bunch of water for Dublin. So there's a couple of lakes we're going to go visit. You saw the sign in the intro. Sorry about the jump scare. But yeah, let's just get going. It was a beautiful day in Dublin. Sun was shining. Everything looks really, really green. So yeah, let's share some of that footage and do a kind of a reaction video. Yeah, let's go. So like I said, we're at the Bornabrina Reservoir, which is a lovely kind of green area. There's a couple of lakes. You'll see in the footage. It's all very, very nice. So as we walk here, I actually want to talk about some of the benefits of walking. So like I've said, a bunch of times, I get up and walk every day, first thing in the morning. I feel like it just wakes me up, puts me in a good mood and kind of gets me ready for the day. It also helps me loosen up, right? When you've got arthritis, you tend to wake up pretty stiff in the morning. So getting up and going for a walk, even if it's just 20 minutes, I find loosens up my back, my hips, and I just generally feel good afterwards. My mind feels a bit clearer, my blood is pumping. I've gotten some oxygen into my brain, my joints have had a chance to wake up, and overall, I think I just feel better. And conversely, if I get up and don't go for a walk, I will just kind of feel sluggish. I work from home, so if I get out of bed and just get into a computer or get into the chair in front of my computer, I'll feel just kind of sluggish and tired, and it's just not a great way to start the day. But there are a lot of real scientific studied benefits of walking, and I want to talk about some of those. So at the cellular level and kind of what's going on inside your biology, there's a few things that are interesting and why I think I've gravitated towards walking, independent of actually understanding any of the science, right? This is stuff that I've felt firsthand, and that's why I do it, rather than seeing a study and saying, oh, science told me to do this, I'm going to go do it. No, you do it and you feel the benefits, and then you can look at the science and say, oh, that's why that works for me, right? I think there's a better way to approach it. So first off, walking promotes these natural painkillers that your body can produce. Your body can actually produce these opiate-like things, right? I don't want to get into too technical terminology, but it's basically a natural painkiller that will flow through your body. So walking will help promote that. It also lowers inflammation. And the arthritis I have is an inflammatory condition, so I have chronic inflammation. So anything I can do to lower that inflammation is going to be beneficial. It will also lower cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and when you're stressed, that can affect your inflammation, and when it comes to treating arthritis, lowering your stress is a really, really important part of the self-management component of the disease. So if you have a chronic health condition, it's not just your doctor's problem. Your doctor has however many hundreds of patients, right? They got a lot to deal with, so it's not like you're just giving your health condition to your doctor. You've got a part to play as well, right? So self-management part, reducing stress is a big part of that. Walking will also help lower your blood pressure. So if you've got issues with blood pressure, it will really, really help with that too. So there's a kind of a bunch of things going on around pain and inflammation and stuff that's kind of going on inside of your blood. The next thing is synovial fluid in your joints. So synovial fluid is interesting because it needs oxygen and nutrients, kind of like the rest of your organs in your body need oxygen and nutrients, but there's no blood actually being pumped in or through the synovial fluid. Now, synovial fluid, I should say, is where you've got joints. So if you imagine your knee, let's say you've got two bones that are connecting, there's a fluid, there's kind of a sac around them, and there's a fluid there, and that stops, grinding of the bone. It's why you've got a bit of squidginess in your joints. That fluid needs those nutrients, and the way the nutrients are pumped into the synovial fluid is through movement. It's almost like a sponge where you squeeze the sponge, and when you let go, it can suck up water, right? And that's kind of what it's doing. You squeeze, and all the dirty water is coming out, and then you let go, and it sucks up all the nutrients in the clean water. And that's what's going on inside the synovial fluid in your joints, and walking helps do that, right? So it's helping keeping your joints oxygenated and the nutrients they need. I'm going to pause here because the footage is really, really nice at this point. So we've reached the first lake, and look at that. It's just really nice. I mean, it's a beautiful day. We're coming into summer. Everything is really, really green. And I like to go up there and just kind of sit and breathe for a while, because breathing is another thing that's really, really good for reducing stress and all that sort of stuff, which again is part of your self-management. So I was talking about synovial fluid and joints. So moving is the way you get the nutrients into your joints, and this is actually true kind of up and down your spine as well, where you've got these like cushiony discs between your vertebrae. Movement is what kind of wakes them up and gets them ready to move, right? We tend to be a bit stiff in the morning, whether or not you have arthritis, right? And as the day goes on, you're moving around, so nutrients and oxygen is being pumped into those parts of your body. So that's synovial fluid. Next is cellular waste removal. So as your body is producing energy, and all the cells in your body are producing energy, waste is produced. You'll actually notice this if you lift weights, right? So we call this lactic acid buildup. So if you lift some heavy weights, you will feel a burn in your muscles, right? And what that is lactic acid, and that is a waste product. So waste products need to be cleared out of your cells, and then your body has systems to take care of that. I paused to look at a nice flower, or bunch of flowers on the tree there. The waste removal process, walking helps facilitate that, right, at the cellular level. So it's just helping with your body's maintenance. And the last thing is lymphatic circulation. So your lymph nodes, you're probably familiar with. Your lymphatic system is to do with partly with your immune system, and partly to do with cleaning up the waste in your body, and helping your blood, clean out your blood, and all this sort of maintenance that's going on inside your body. And walking will help the lymphatic system, because it doesn't have a pump. That's again what helps it move around your body. So that's kind of some stuff that's going on inside. But what's going on, I guess, at a more tangible level, stuff that we can see and we can feel. First off, your bone density. So just as you're walking, putting weight on your bones is going to be increasing your bone density. So your bone, it's interesting. Growing up, I always kind of thought, like, you see a skeleton and they're white and the bone is hard, but actually your bone is more like pink, and it grows, and it's living tissue, right? So by doing load or weight bearing activities like lifting weights and indeed walking, you are actually promoting growth and strengthening of your bones, right? They're not just some static hard thing that exists in your body. You can actually they grow, and they can increase in strength. Also body weight. So as you're walking, it takes about half an hour. Again, none of this is precise, and I hate when people put precise numbers on these things. But when you start walking, you're going to be burning off any sugar or glucose that's in your bloodstream. But after about half an hour, when you've used up a lot of that kind of readily available sugar that's flowing through your body, you will start burning fat. So if you've been walking for about a half hour, your body's primary mechanism for fueling itself will turn to fat burning. Now, you will be burning fat, you will be burning calories, but if you go for a walk and then go home and eat 6 donuts, I mean, you're going to offset that pretty quickly. So just be mindful of that. But it is a great way to burn fat. And this is partly, it's my favorite way to do cardio, because it's so low impact. I can't run, arthritis in my hips and in my spine. I tend to get injured very quickly if I go for a run. So it's a great low impact exercise to do for your cardio. And you're relaxing, you're walking, there's all these sorts of benefits. Also for your lumbar muscle, actually specifically kind of in around your lower back. If you think when you're walking, your hips are kind of shifting from side to side, your spine is getting a little bit of work, you're having to stay upright, and you're staying upright while moving and while balancing. So you've got all these muscles that are kind of going up from your hips all the way up your spine into your neck. So the stability and strength in those muscles is being increased and improved through just walking, right? So you walk with good posture, you're training those muscles to be strong. And that goes for your feet as well. So when you think about your feet, You've got your ankles and your foot, and as you're walking, you're having to do all these balance and stabilization stuff that's going on. So you're not even thinking about, right? But it's happening, and all of that stabilization and as you're doing the walking, especially if you're wearing barefoot shoes, which I always wear when I go for a walk. And actually, on this part of the walk, that path is loads of stones, so that was actually pretty uncomfortable in barefoot shoes because you feel everything. But having said that, it means that the ground is kind of uneven. It's rocky, literally rocky. Um, so the in terms of the stability and strengthening in your ankles, that's actually you're getting a lot of benefit there. So yeah, you're strengthening all these muscles and increasing your bone density and just making your body more resilient. So both internally in your cells, in your blood, and kind of more visibly and externally your bones, your muscles, everything is getting a workout. It's all being strengthened. It's all being conditioned. Um, it's interesting that we call walking exercise. I don't really see it as exercise, just like I don't see eating and breathing as exercise. Like you don't say, oh, I'm going to go out and exercise my lungs, right? Because we're just breathing, and you need to breathe, or your body will cease to function, right? Just like you need to eat. When I eat, I'm not exercising my jaw and my stomach and my digestive system, right? When I drink, I'm not exercising my, swallowing muscles, right? These are things that we do because our body needs them to function. And I firmly believe that walking is another one of those things, right? It's like you can go do your exercise, lift your weights and all that stuff where you're doing specific things where you want to elicit a specific result, whether it's growing strength, building muscles, whatever it is. But when it comes to walking, that's just the thing that you need to do, like eating, breathing, drinking, right? It's your body, as I've just talked about. All of these processes rely on or are helped by, facilitated by walking, right? This movement. We need to move for our body to actually be able to maintain itself. Just like we need to eat and breathe and sleep and drink for our body to be able to maintain itself. So that's the benefits of walking. But like I said, I don't like to get hung up on the science, right? I think it's much more useful to go out, feel it yourself. Start by going out for a 10-minute walk a day. Try to do that 3 days a week, right? And then maybe try a 20-minute walk 3 days a week. And then maybe you can do 10 minutes 5 days a week. You can play around with the numbers, right? If you don't have much time, go for 5 minutes a few days a week. Whatever it is, but go feel the benefits. And then you can look at the science stuff and say, oh, that makes sense. I'm feeling this. The scientists have figured out why. But don't worry about the why. Go and feel the benefits for yourself, right? And the why you're doing it will become an implicit thing because you understand firsthand what the benefits are. Okay, so we are approaching the second lake here. And I don't know about you, but I think one of the reasons why I love walking around places like this and getting out to places like this where there's kind of like a valley and there's some water and there's some trees and when you're up high and looking down on some trees, it always makes me feel like I'm in Jurassic Park. And maybe that's just me. I don't know if you do this as well, but watch. As I come around this bend here, right? We've got the lake off in the distance. It looks all very nice. Look, the water's glimmering there. It was a really, really spectacular day. One when you're in Ireland, it's worth celebrating. But look down here, right? As I look down here, come on, don't tell me it doesn't feel a bit Jurassic Parkish, right? Now maybe you just can't see the dinosaurs at the moment, but they're there. Anyway, I promised a hot take at the end, and so my hot take is around freedom. So I'm a software engineer. I make computer games for a living, and one of the things that, if you're a software engineer or any engineers will be familiar with this idea, dependency management. So when you write code, you are actually relying on a whole bunch of code that's been written by other people over the years. So for example, if you've got an app running on your phone, that app can't run without having Android or Apple's. If you're running an Android phone or an Apple phone, you need the operating system there, right? Your code can't run because it's running within the context of the operating system. So that is a dependency, right? But there's a whole bunch of other dependencies that happen, right? So like I make computer games. So with a computer game, you'll often have a game engine. And what we're talking about a game engine is someone wrote a bunch of code that takes care of the physics, the graphics, the sound, all of that stuff. So we can just focus on writing the game. I don't want to write physics software. I want to write a game. So I'm just going to use code someone else wrote. So I've got a game engine. I've got my code. We combine them and then they run on the phone in Android or iOS. These are all dependencies. And one of the challenging things about dependencies is that, well, you depend on them. So let's say I build a game and I build a whole business and I'm making loads of money and everything is great, but then Google turns around and says, I don't like your game. Now, it probably won't happen because if I'm making lots of money, Google are making lots of money, so they're probably not going to want to cancel my game. But let's say they do, right? I've got an entire business, I've got staff, I've got, my living is depending on this product, but Google might come along and say, I don't like your game, it's off the App Store. Well, what do I do then? I made this game specifically to work on a phone. I depend on Android. I depend on Google. But now they've just destroyed my business with a single decision. One person on the Google end can just go on a computer and select my game and go blocked, right? And my entire business, years worth of work, goes out the window. So that's a pretty significant dependency. So we do need to be concerned about dependencies. Now, as a developer in a mobile ecosystem, you're going to have a dependency, and that's just normal. And you need to work around whatever the guidelines or restrictions on that particular platform are. But you need to think about your dependencies and you need to be aware. So for example, the game engine that I depend on, well, what happens if that company goes under, right? Is my game destroyed as well? And there's loads of other bits of code where, maybe I'm using this piece of code from someone else to do a specific thing and this thing over here. And I just need to be conscious of that. Every time I decide to use someone else's code, I become dependent on it. Now, this can apply to kind of the wider world. So the way I think about it, when it comes to your health, right? If you're eating predominantly processed food, heavily processed food, you depend on your supermarket, right? Because that's where the food comes from. So that's one dependency, pretty key dependency that you have. If you are only eating processed food, well, then you need to look at that supply chain as well. So the everything that your processed food is made from, if it's got palm oil that's coming from Indonesia, from some plantation that destroyed a rainforest, it's got ingredients from all around the world. All these things need to come together through all these complex supply chains. They go to some facility where they're manufactured into the product that you're going to buy, and then it gets shipped to the supermarket where you buy it. So there's a lot of dependencies there, and if any one of those breaks down, you're not going to get that product anymore, right? A more reasonable dependency to have is on, let's say, a local farmer, or maybe you're growing some food and vegetables yourself. That would eliminate a lot of these dependencies. Now, you still have a major dependency on your environment. One bad summer or one bad harvest could leave you without food. But the point is, the more complex your supply chain is, the more risky, or the more complex your network of dependencies is, the more inherent risk there is in the dependencies, because there's lots of different places where it can break down. I also think about this in terms of walking. Like, if you can't walk somewhere to get food, if you live somewhere where you can't just walk to a place where you can get your food, now you depend on your car, and you depend on petrol or diesel or gas or whatever you're putting in your car, and the whole supply chain that happens there. So when it comes to freedom, you need to think about what are your dependencies. How free are you? You can actually kind of measure that to some degree based on what your dependencies are. Okay, so the things that you depend on, that you say, I couldn't get through the day without X, right? Well, have a think about the supply chain of X. If you couldn't get through the day without it, how complex is that web of dependencies? And how likely is it to break down, right? So for me, walking and health are the key things to actually be a free human being, okay? If you're not healthy, now you depend on the pharmaceutical companies and a whole web of dependencies there. If you're eating predominantly processed foods, you're depending on that entire industry. But if you focus on eating well, plants, locally sourced meat, all of that stuff, all of a sudden your dependency web gets a lot less complicated and you become more free as a result, right? You are more resilient in general. So that's why I think walking, being strong, eating well, eating unprocessed food, doing these things make you a free person. If I was going to subjugate a bunch of people, like let's say I was a conquistador or something like that, right? And back in the day, we found a tribe of people and said, I want to control these people. A pretty good way to control them would be to take their food, right? And now I'm in control of the food, so they need me, right? So now I'm in control because they need me. I have something they need. Then what I might do is actually change the food so that it makes them sick, and then produce the cure, so I have the cure. So now they're coming to me because they need food, but the food they have is making them sick, so I give them the cure. Now, that means once they're sick, they can't just go off and, do their own thing. They can't leave, right? So before, if I was just controlling the food, maybe they could leave and go find food somewhere else. But now I'm giving them food and making them sick and providing the cure for the sickness. It's not a bad way to control a bunch of people. Anyway, I'm rambling. That is my hot take. If you want to be free, if you want to be truly free, you need to look at the complexity of your web of dependencies. And I think you'll find that being healthy, predominantly eating whole foods, locally produced if possible, being strong, and walking all make you a free person. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like the video, consider subscribing if you want more content like this. And if you have any questions, or if you just massively disagree with my hot take or any of that stuff, leave a question in the comments. Thank you. Have a great day.